नमस्कार कार्यक्रम रंगमञ्च हेरेर बसिरहनु भएका सम्पूर्ण दर्शकबिनहरुमा म प्रवीण पुमाको आदरणीय दर्शकबिन यो रंगमञ्च कार्यक्रम इन्डिजिनस टेलिभिजन र आईटीभी को प्रस्तुति हो। यो कार्यक्रम प्रत्येक मंगलबार बेलुका 8:30 बजेदेखि 9 बजेसम्म प्रसारण हुन्छ। यो कार्यक्रममा प्रदर्शनकारी कला सम्बन्धीको विभिन्न विचारहरू, छलफलहरू, बहसहरू प्रस्तुत हुनेछ। यसै सालमा आज हामीले तारा निडहाटज्यूलाई हामीले निम्ताएका छौं। ताराजी, वेलकम टु यू।
Well, thank you so much. It's a real pleasure and an honor to be here.
Taraji, you are doing so many things in musical journey. But can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So my name is Tara Linhart, or Tara Linhart, and I first came to Nepal around 30 years ago in 1991, and I was basically an exchange student from the United States. Which is where I'm originally from, Virginia, in the United States. I came with the University of Wisconsin, and I did about 11-month program here, and it changed my life. So I was exposed to the beauty, the culture, the people. I studied tabla, so I studied the music. I studied I traveled with an NGO around Nepal for environmental information. Made some friends I still have now, and I studied at Kopan Monastery, where I studied Buddhism and became a professional musician as a result. They told me I could also meditate through playing music or doing other things where I could really focus. And at that time, I decided to become a musician. So that was my takeaway from a meditation retreat. So many things changed because of my year here. Then I guess I went back to the United States. I lived in Thailand. I lived some other places. But every time I went to a different country around the world to do work or study, I ended up loving Nepal more and wanting to come back here. I became a professional bluegrass musician, which is our mountain music, Paharko Git. It's a little bit like jazz. You know, you play a song correctly, like the old-fashioned way, and then you improvise, and then you play it straight again, as we would say. And when I came back here with a friend of mine, colleague of mine, Danny Nicely, we came back as musicians, as professional musicians, and we connected with the Gandharva community and realized how similar the traditions of our Appalachian music and musical cultures are as that of the Gandharvas. And so we ended up meeting a friend in Lhasa, in Tibet, named Jake Pentansky, and we made a documentary film called the Mountain Music Project, which goes back and forth between Nepal and Virginia, and looks at the amazing similarities, really. After that came out, we did some touring throughout the United States. With that, I came back and played some concerts here, met some great musicians like Sham Nepali, who I ended up touring around the United States with also, and started some music education programs, as Jake and I both did, where we would hire local Nepali traditional musicians like sarangi player, mostly, or bansuri player, and have them teach local kids that otherwise had no access to music education programs. And most recently, I have been talking about the beauty and the amazing wonders of the wood carving, the Tanka painting, the weaving, tapestries, food, all the artistry of Nepal in the United States, and getting people excited to come here to study, even just for a week or two as tourists, but about the music, the art, the culture of Nepal. So we do arts and culture tours, and I'm leading those now with my husband, Ian Poole. So it's a beautiful thing to connect people who really are inspired by each other, motivated by each other from different cultures that have these common threads of arts and music love.
And Taraji, you are doing the musical journey through your nation to different nation from the around the world. Then what is the purpose to travel through the musical journey?
Yeah. So, like, not all of the people that I'm bringing from the United States are musicians. Maybe about half. But they're all lovers of music, and some are professional musicians. And then when I bring them to Nepal, I set up to play with some of the different musicians and to experience the music also some of the artists, we go visit the wood carvers I used to study with when I was an undergrad here. And people can do hands-on work. And the result is usually people that leave with a lifelong love and respect for how many cultures are really in Nepal, how many languages are here. We did also a short trek to the Longtang region this time after the arts and culture tour around the valley of Kathmandu. And, you just, for people who have never been to Nepal before, realizing how rich this country is, what an asset it has in all of these languages and cultures and foods. It's very magical for people, and I think a little mind-blowing to see how much is really here.
And Taradaji, what are the, is there the similarities and the differences from your nation to here?
Yes. I mean, people are people. And then mountain people are mountain people. So the more similarities in geography sometimes that you find, sometimes also the more similarities in culture you may find. But it's interesting, in the United States, many of the people from the cities or the suburbs don't actually even know what the country people in the United States have as culture. For instance, many people that I've met in the city, like I lived around New York City, had no idea that people in the Virginia and North Carolina mountains still made moonshine, which is our word for Roxy. And also that they just sat and played music for their time off instead of watching movies or TV. Nowadays, they also watch some movies and TV. But, being able to make things. Also in the Appalachian Mountains, you have a lot of people who don't have as much money, maybe, but they know how to make something when they want it, or how to fix something when they want it. They can make quilts or weaving or, things that are here. And so I think that's one of the things I really have enjoyed lately, is bringing some of those people who may not otherwise think of coming someplace as far away as Nepal, but they actually are more similar than the city people who may be thinking of it in the first place. So I bring some people from the country, from the bluegrass music tradition, for instance, or old-time tradition. And they go, oh, it's just like in Virginia. Still in Virginia, some people have like an outhouse for the bathroom, like we call it outhouse, like a charpie. So for someone from rural Virginia, it's not so strange,
But for the musical instrument and cultural similarities and differences?
So like the sarangi is 4 strings. And we call a fiddle, what city people would call a violin, maybe, or some people, a violin, classical people. It's also 4 strings. And often the old tradition in the mountains, the fiddle would play basically a melody line along with the person singing, and people would dance. Just like a Gandharva might do that, bringing the news and making dance music for a party. You would have live musicians. In our movie, in our documentary, we interviewed people in Virginia and in Nepal, in different places. We went to different communities in the Terai and in the west and central areas. And the older people we interviewed in both countries said the same things. They said, we used to be in demand. Everyone wanted live musicians, because that's how music happened. If you wanted music at a get-together or a wedding or a party. Now we have TV, we have, streaming, we have CDs, people don't actually need live musicians to make music. So it's caused musicians, traditional musicians, acoustic musicians, everywhere to re-examine, how do we define ourselves? How do we find work? So both places where they were saying very similar ideas. And I think also in a way we need to try to hope that the young people, that music is not just the push of a button. There's so much time and energy and soul that goes into making it. If someone is playing music for you live, listen to it. Don't just talk louder over it, because so many people in every country now have always had the music at the touch of a button. So if someone is playing live music and singing their heart for you, you just yell over it louder, because it's something that's just always a button, not a person. So very many similarities, I think. Also in the sound and the styles of the music. if you listen to what we call old time music from the Appalachian Mountains or Paharokogit, some of the melodies are almost the exact same as some of the Nepali melodies, just the notes themselves. And the themes of the music also have a lot of similarities. You know, you have rural people, they sing about hard times, they sing about a good harvest, a bad harvest, a flood, heartbreak, joys of the heart. You know, it's humans. They're really not that different, especially if you get rural people. Once you translate the song out, you know, we have the song about the bad person, complaining about something, being joyous about something. So that's been very beautiful. Actually, when we first, Danny Nicely and I first came to Nepal together, and we were playing music with the Gandharvas, and then he realized that they were playing a song, the interlude of Roshni Rai was the exact same melody as a song we have called Sally Ann. And so we started playing Sally Ann, and they were like, you've already learned our music. And we said, no, this is our mountain music. And they were like, but it's the same music. And it was very exciting. And that was part of why we decided to make a CD and a film, a documentary, just to say, we are so blown away with the similarities. Surely other people in the world hopefully will be interested also. So the Mountain Music Project, it's streams on Amazon, but it also is available on DVD. People can go to mountainmusicproject.com and see clips, or YouTube's to see clips of it. And maybe it'll show on your network at some time.
Taraji, even this is this is the time of the modernization. Even everything is changing day by day, but you and your team is always playing the live music. Is there any concern for that, the living to the different places of the world? Even I have
absolutely,
absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you know, if people don't support live music by going and paying for tickets or giving tips to the musicians, live music gets very hard to maintain. You know, you may have only a few mega stars, you know, very famous people left. You know, I had some friends in New York City area, and they took it as their job to go see live music. And it's a very important job. If you want to have musicians in your community or artists in your community, you have to support them or they won't be there. Just like small stores. If you don't support the small restaurants and the small stores, you won't have any. So, yeah, it's a definite danger. These days, so many people want to see all of their music and their life inside their phone or their tablet. You know, you need, and it's a different vibe, feeling live music and interacting with the audience. So if I'm doing a concert and the audience is really liking the faster songs and they're wanting to dance, it makes us excited, and we play more of that style of song. If the audience seems very calm and they love the slower, beautiful songs, then we'll give them more of that because there's a conversation. And if your only connection to the music is in a box, you're not having a connection. So just like with a person having a conversation, musicians with each other have conversations through the notes, and musicians with the audience have a conversation also, back and forth. So hopefully the younger people will explore that magic and encourage that magic of live performances and live music.
Taraji, you are exploring the regional music in different places of the different places. In your view, what is the difference between exploring the music in the different places, in small places, in village level, or the ground level, and the professional level?
Right. And again, that's the same in every country, it seems, too. The most important thing about music is causing something that brings joy. That it's like hearing emotions. So you can capture sadness, and joy, and excitement in sound, right? It doesn't have to be perfect, you know. Some people only are looking at the big stars, they're always seeing something that's very produced. It has the lights. I mean, I've had friends that are in bands that are very produced bands that have a light show, and you walk 3 steps to the right at this time. Then I play these notes, and I pretend to solo, and I must go lower, and the lights will go lower. That's theater, and that's fantastic. But there's also something fantastic about a spontaneous adventure of music. And that's something that happens when it's not overly practiced and produced. And that's also a magical thing. You know, that's where that spontaneous conversation and adventure, the spirit is there. So I think it's a great thing to explore small local regional music as well as the more polished higher levels. And as long as I tell this to my students, I teach music lessons also, as long as if you have a few songs and you can play them, and it brings you joy, or it brings the people around you joy, you are a musician, you are on the road. It's not a road that ends. Like people say, you know, when they start taking lessons, how long before I'm a musician? Or their child starts taking lessons from me, how long before he will be a musician? And I say, well, once you know 2 songs and you can play them, and they sound right, you're a musician, and you're on the road, and the road continues. You don't just get to a store and get off and say, now I'm here. You get on the road, and it's the beauty of it is it's endless journey. There's always more music, there's always more styles, there's always more songs, you never finish. It's great for the person who's intellectually always thirsty. You know, they're always wanting more. There's always more music.
Wherever you are you are playing or performing the musicals tournaments in different places. Even you are playing the musical instrument with the local musical tune. I have watched.
Yeah, I try.
Through the social sites.
Yeah, on YouTube and like that.
Is it easy for, or this is easy for you, or this is the duty?
I love to learn regional songs and songs from people. It's not always easy, and I don't always get the right melody. You know, it takes some time. It just depends. You know, the shorter and easier the song is, sometimes the easier it is to learn. But it's a wonderful thing, and to have someone sit with you and teach you a song. You know, some people learn songs off of sheet music. Some people through what we call oral tradition. I can do a little bit of both. I'm not a genius at either. You know, I have to put time in. I'll be like, can you show me again? Okay, now the last part. Show me the last part again, and I'll have to practice. So it's not instant. Sometimes you can get lucky, and I think with any art, sometimes you just have the forces of the universe channel through you, and you somehow you just learned it and you're playing it. Other times you're like, I did not get that last song. So, you know, that's part of the joy of it. Is it sometimes it's a fun challenge. So it just depends.
Because the local music is a challenge for the new one. Yes, am I right? If we made a mistake for the tune for that, the local people may not happy.
Right.
Yes?
Yes.
Am I right?
Sure. Yeah.
Especially for the folk music.
Yes. There's also
that is a big challenge for the
person coming into a new tradition.
Yeah.
You have to try to. There's the folk process, which is what we call the process by which you change, make a mistake, make a tune your own. Sometimes a tune is usually slow, but you decide to speed it up or add a different feel to the song. And that can be the folk process. It can be a fun thing. People hear a song like Rashan Piriri done so many different ways because so many people know it. They play with it like a toy, you know. But then you don't want to go so far away that people say, what are you doing? That's not right, you know. So there's a lot of opinion too. I mean, even in our music, if I only play just bluegrass music in Virginia, there are some people who will say, why did you make such a jazz version of that song? I hate that. You've ruined it. Other people say, I love that you've made a new, fresh version of that song. You know, is there really a right or wrong in that context? You know, you can just miss a few notes and that's just like, whoops, mistake. But then there's adding a feel or a flavor that's different, and that's where opinion, you know, art, any art, or cooking, which can also be art. You know, like if you're just thinking, if someone's not an artist, most people eat, right? And if you're making a recipe, you can make it somehow fresh and different, and some people will love that new flavor, and other people will be like, why did you put that in there? This doesn't go in there. So knowing your audience, I've done that when I moved back from Asia to the United States, and I had to bring food for a potluck, you know, where everyone brings a dish, and I put a lot of spices, Asian spices, and the people in my community in the mountains of Virginia, some of the older people especially were like, what did you do? You ruined it. And I was like, really? I thought it was good. So flavoring your music, flavoring your art, flavoring your food, you gotta just try to know your audience and hope you please them. Or if they don't get pleased, find a different audience that can be pleased by it. I think some young people probably do that. They notice that the older people don't like the new flair or the lights or the electric effects on their sarangi, but other people will like it. So maybe they expand their audience. So
You are traveling through the journey, musical journey, from from your nation to different places. But in your view, what types of the music should we promote for the own identity?
again, that's such an opinion question that I particularly have an affinity or a like of traditional music, so of acoustic musics.
Christian music.
I love the sound of wood and metal and the elements of just an instrument without computer effects. But sometimes even I will like some effects on things. It is fun. But I encourage, I think, the acoustic music partly because there's a very raw authenticity to music. And I have a friend, for instance, he played professionally, he played jazz music and rock music for many years professionally from Chicago area. And then he came to rural Virginia and discovered our acoustic bluegrass music. And he said, for my friends to play music, it would take us 20 minutes at least to plug in all these amps and set up all of the equipment and get all the levels right and then argue about how high to turn the volumes and the levels. And then acoustic musicians, they can meet in a parking lot. They can meet behind a store and just open the case and within literally 45 seconds be playing a song, if they're in tune. You know, the beauty of just like, let's play, okay, and just no connection to electricity. We don't need power. We can play on a mountaintop or in a house. And you actually hear the instrument itself and not a lot of cyber computer sound. I mean, not that I've never liked music that had amplification. It can all be fun.
It can be fun.
Yeah.
Means that through this music, we can create the own identity.
Yes, and music can be useful as a tool, for sure, to create identity, to promote identity. Creating songs that promote a theme or an idea. People will hear that song and sing that song, and that's been used throughout the world, to create solidarity, to educate, to promote, to preserve. And sometimes I think with fusion of different musicians or different cultures, even within the Kathmandu Valley, if you have a person from like a swing jazz is getting very popular here, like gypsy jazz, and you have them playing with some traditional musicians and maybe a rock musician, and all of their audiences get together and appreciate the blend of the musics, thereby getting the people who only listen to the rock music to now be excited about the jazz or the sarangi or the bansuri. I think it's a very exciting time seeing how people from different countries are coming together, and I've been encouraging people to come here to study the music, and they will bring their own ideas and their own spice and flavor to add to the soup, as it were, the cultural creation that is constantly happening. You know, we have, in anthropology, we call it cross-fertilization, but where each culture and each person brings their own little bit of identity and culture and to the soup and creates a nice melting pot and a nice flavor.
Galvanizing the cultural fusions.
Absolutely, absolutely. And as I've heard it said before, a tradition that is not growing and expanding and living is often dying. So we do have within our traditional musics in Appalachia traditionalists who only like to play it the old way, and that's fantastic because they will preserve that way, and we will look at them to see how did they do it in 1945, how did they do it in 1925, you know, how did they, someone that can really be a living archive that they can play the tune the old ways, priceless. But also priceless is the person, we have a guy named Billy Strings who's playing the old tunes, but with a lot of new energy, with young people and light show and plugging instruments in. But he's plugging in acoustic old instruments, and it's creating a huge excitement and a huge new audience who, like an entry drug, they're finding him, and then from him he says, I always listen to these old people who are now dead, like Doc Watson or Bill Monroe, and then his audience goes, oh, who is Doc Watson? Who is Tony Rice? Who is Bill Monroe? And then they will then find the old masters through that. Probably the same thing here. People will listen to Prince Nepali or Katumbaa, and then they will hear those guys talking about their influences, and they will then find those people and go backwards in time and in tradition. And some of those people will love the old stuff. So keeping the traditions alive.
Keeping the tradition alive through the music. That's the point. Your views.
It is definitely very very possible to do.
Very possible to do.
Yeah, admirable to do.
Yeah, okay.
Hopeful.
In music, in the performing art, there will be the philosophical tune also. But how can we find philosophical tune in the musical musicality?
Each music style has its own philosophy. Yeah.
In music has an own philosophy, and sometimes this music creates the peace for the human being, not only human being but also the living being. And sometimes it creates the horror to the other. Even that, how can we utilize for the human being and creating the identity through the music culture?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways that question being put to many different musicians will be answered many different ways, and because of that we will find different audiences. And so, you know, some people may want to dress in their traditional dress or sing in their traditional languages as a way to preserve and promote the philosophies and the identities that they're coming from. And other people may fusion that with new ideas. I love the idea of indigenous languages being more represented in music. And even if everyone doesn't understand, you know, globally, they can still hear the beauty of the song and sometimes say, I love this song. What is this language? You know, so it can be a way where people can be excited by the words of a song, where some people definitely find that's their entry into music, is listening to the words, and then the musicality behind it is the second thing they notice. Other people may notice the sounds of the music and then go into the words and say, let's say if you have small language groups, you know, someone singing in Rai or Nori or Tamang, then people say, what is Tamang? And so you get someone listening to this beautiful sounding song in Sydney, Australia, or Chicago, Illinois, and they just love the sound of it. And then they say, oh, it's a Tamang song. Where are the Tamang people? So it can be a way where people, and through the internet, it's a very exciting time because people can make a song in Sharshup language of Eastern Bhutan or, you know, whatever their language family is, and put it on the internet, and then tag it, and then people interested in indigenous languages or smaller language groups, or just music that has a certain feel. Let's say if you made a jazz sounding song, a gypsy jazz song, but you sang it in Newari, then a lot of people who just love gypsy jazz, you know, like the people that hang out gypsy swing in Potton or something, they'll just want to play that song because they love the melody. And then someone will have to learn the words. And they'll be singing in Newari.
Okay, that's it. A long time your experiences about the musical journey. Even that we have a short time for each of the program schedule. So can you start by viewing your important viewing with the idea?
Do you mean like where can people find more information about that?
We are closing for our program, but we want to hear your this strong idea, musical idea for the people.
Okay. So I would just encourage everybody to play music. You know, it's not that hard. You just learn one note at a time, one song at a time, and then as more people play music, more people also appreciate music and musicality. People who have studied the guitar or the piano or the sarangi or the tungna, they then appreciate a really good musician playing that. They understand what it takes. And so I would say everyone start playing music, find a good teacher, practice and enjoy it. Music should not be work, it should be play. We say play music, so find the joy in it. And then put a little of yourself into it. So sing about things you know in your own life, whether it's a rural village or a big city. Put something about your own people or your own culture in it. Put that out there, and it may take off, especially with the internet. So I encourage everyone to take part in the fun. You know, don't miss out.
Don't miss it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Taraji.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a real honor being here. Thank you.
Okay. आदरणीय दर्शकबिन तपाईं अहिले हेर्दै हुनुहुन्थ्यो कार्यक्रम रङ्गमञ्च। यो कार्यक्रम तपाईलाई कस्तो लाग्यो? यो कार्यक्रम सम्बन्धी कुनै सुझाव सल्लाह भए हामीलाई सम्पर्क राख्नुहोला। अहिलेलाई भने म लगायत मेरो सम्पूर्ण टिम तपाईहरुबाट बिदा हुन चाहन्छु। नमस्ते।